Hi, welcome to Books with Brushu. I'm your host, Jordan, and I like to drink coffee and read books. Welcome to another reading wrap-up video, and today we will be discussing the books that I read in May. Sorry if you can hear my neighbor, he is cutting his grass, and you know what? I'm not even mad about it because I'm just glad he's finally doing it. He hasn't cut his grass in at least a month and a half, and it's like 2 feet tall. So I'm just glad that he's finally out there cutting it because it's been looking pretty bad for a while now. I've got some good news and some bad news. Want to start off with the bad news? Well, Canada just lost in the bronze medal game, and I'm sad. And I'm sad because I really wanted Mac and Sid to win, but they did not, unfortunately. The good news is, guys, last week I got a new tattoo. Got a new tattoo last week, and I love it. So let me just show you guys. Yep. I don't know if this is a good view or not. Maybe I should sit up. So I did get a new tattoo last week, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. And yes, it is Feyre's tattoo and Reese's tattoo. I got the eye on the back of my hand instead of the palm because obviously palm tattoos aren't ideal because they don't really last or take very well, just because of how thick the skin is and the turnover and all of that. So I got the eye put on the back of my hand instead of the palm, and then I went ahead and got the mountains and the stars put here. And you guys, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. And it is peeling right now. So there's like random bits everywhere, but it is peeling right now. I just love it. I just love it so, so, so much. That's the good news and the bad news for today. Before we jump into this wrap up, now that I've updated you guys on what's going on, grab yourself a drink. I've got water here. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out. Let's jump into the books that I picked for my TBR, but I did not read this month. And unfortunately, there were quite a few. If you watched my video last week, I did a reading Greek books vlog. So I had books for that video. I had an arc to read, and then of course the 2 series that I'm in the middle of that I'm reading 1 book a month, which is the Kay Scarpetta series and ACOTAR. So didn't get to all of the books on my TBR. So for my audiobook TBR, I did not get to an Olivia Blake book, just how it worked out. And I was traveling for a lot of the month, so I didn't listen to as many audiobooks as I normally do. I also did not get to The Revenant Games, which was the mug pick. Stephen King book, Billy Summers, did not get to. A random Goodreads pick of Lady Tremaine. Shelf Spin with Silver Elite, or a Fairy Loot Adult of Graceless Heart. That is quite a few that I did not get to, unfortunately. That is just how it goes. But I did read some really great books in the month of May, I will say that. So let's talk about my reading stats for the month of May. I read 9 books, which isn't my best, but it's also not my worst, so, you know, 9 books is pretty good. I'm happy with that. They were 4 audiobooks, 1 Kindle book, and then 4 physical Kindle / audiobook. So 4 immersive reads. I have been really diving into the immersive reads. I have just been thoroughly enjoying those. So definitely had a couple of those last month, or this month I should say. And then I did have 1 DNF. My average rating was 4 stars, so really, really good average rating. I love that. And I read 3,492 pages. So I read quite a bit. I am at 53% of my yearly reading goal, and the genres I read are 4 romance, 2 mystery thriller, 2 romantasy, and 1 classic. Those are my stats. Let's talk about the first book that I finished in the month of May, and that was Under a Greek Sky by Francesca Catlow. This is one of the books that I read for my Reading Greek Books vlog. I read it in Greece while I was in Santorini and Paros. So I will link that vlog in the description below so you can check out my full thoughts on that book. I give a very extensive review towards the end of the video of that book. I mostly enjoyed it. It was not solely a romance, but kind of like a contemporary fiction romance sort of esque. It was fine. I mean, I didn't love the way that some of the characters treated our main female character. She had been lied to a lot in her life, and people were basically talking down to her because she was asking questions. But when you've been lied to your whole entire life by your mom, your dad, your fiance, a ton of people, like significant things in your life, you question everything. And she wanted to know answers, like, why has everybody been lying to me my whole life? And people were like, you need to stop asking so many questions. I just didn't love that part. And then the romance at the end, it was like they were back and forth. They didn't know if they loved each other, or they were afraid to love each other because they were scared of love and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden at the end, they were just together. So, I mean, it was fine. It was a fine book to read while I was on vacation, you know, low stakes, whatever. But I gave Under a Greek Sky 3.5 stars, so it wasn't totally terrible. I did mostly enjoy it. Then I moved on to A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. And you guys, of course, I absolutely love this book. I read it in 2 days. One of those 2 days I was actually flying home, so I had a really long plane flight and, you know, sit in the airport time to read. I immersive read this, so I listened to the graphic audio, which I got on Libby, and then read this on my Kindle. I read it on my Kindle because I was traveling. But this second book in the series, we have to deal with Tam Tam, and Rhys comes in, saves the day, and Feyre gets to discover the Night Court, all of the things that happen, and now I just can't wait to read book 3 so that they can get Feyre back. And book 3 is my favorite, so I'm like so super excited about that. Upon reread, I gave A Court of Mist and Fury 4.5 stars. I just love these books so, so much. I just love them so much. Let's move on to an audiobook, and that was Spring's Second Chance by Jay Sterling. This is book 5 in her Fun for the Holidays series. Again, I've been reading one every month, and these are short romance novellas where the couple, there's always insta-lust, they hook up right away, and then they end up with a happily ever after. So in like a 3-hour, you know, 200-page book or less, they, you know, meet, hook up, fall in love, and then end up with each other, you know. It all works out in the end, of course, because, you know, this is fiction. So Spring's Second Chance, we're introduced to our main female character, Spring. Her and her sister own a bakery in a small town in Northern California. Spring, our main female character, she is totally involved in her business and loves it and is seemingly fine with their lives. So she is engaged to this man who is her high school sweetheart. Right at the beginning of the book, she decides that she doesn't want to marry him. Loves him, but she's not in love with him anymore, and she doesn't want the traditional life of staying in this small town forever, having kids, getting married, having kids, and that being the end of it. That's not what she wants. So she breaks off the engagement, which is like, I think 4 or 5 weeks before the wedding. So they have to cancel all of the wedding stuff and tell everybody. And at first, the fiance, he reacts pretty poorly. But then once he thinks about it for a little while, he realizes, you know, we've been together since high school. I've never been with anyone else. Basically, he wants to like sow his wild oats, and that's exactly what he does. They break up, and he like immediately starts dating all of these women in town. She decides to go on their honeymoon to Hawaii by herself. She has always been dreaming of going to Hawaii. She takes the vacation, and of course, she meets some famous surfer guy in Hawaii who she doesn't know who he is, but a lot of other people do because obviously he's a famous surfer. They meet at his brother's resort because that's where she's staying. One thing leads to another, and they start hooking up, and then they realize that they're in love with each other, and she goes home, and then they end up together. So, you know, it's just a short novella, and this one was okay. I really did not like the narrators for this book. Their voices were both, the male and female, were really monotone. and they just weren't intriguing at all. They were just like, okay, and then this happens and this. I didn't like the narrator, so maybe that lessened my enjoyment of the book. I don't know, but I gave Spring's Second Chance 3.75 stars. Then I jumped into Cruel and Unusual by Patricia Cornwell. This is the 4th book in the Kay Scarpetta series, which is the completed series that I've been working my way through since February. I somehow don't have a physical copy of this one. Not sure how that happened, but I listened to it on audio, really enjoyed it. Again, Kay is involved in some nonsense. We've got people, again, trying to like hack into her computer system and make her out to be the bad guy and that she can't do her job and blah, blah. And at this point, it's kind of sort of getting a little bit repetitive of people are just constantly coming after her, whether it's trying to come after, not like to take her place at like in her job, but try to get her fired from her job or trying to kill her and you know, all that kind of stuff. I did enjoy this audiobook and I enjoyed it a little bit more than the last one, which was All That Remains. We're just following Kay and Marino around as they're trying to solve these crimes. Her niece, is it Lucy? Is Lucy her niece? Comes and visits and is helping her with some computer stuff and trying to find the hacker. And there's like a hacker that's gotten into APHIS, so the niece is trying to help figure out what happened in APHIS and what was taken out and what was changed and blah blah. It was pretty good. Again, I still recommend this series. I think I'm just kind of getting a little bit tired of it because it's getting like a little bit repetitive. June is my last month reading the Kay Scarpetta series for my completed series challenge. However, fate wills is when I will read the next one. But I gave Cruel and Unusual 4 stars, so still enjoyed it. Then I jumped into another audiobook. And the reason that I read so many audiobooks back to back is because I finally painted my 2 bookshelves. Finally painted the 2 bookshelves. It took me forever to sand them down, then get them painted. So they are in the house and they're sitting here curing because I used the same paint on the mantle in my living room and only gave it like a week and a half to cure, and then I put stuff on top of it, and then that stuff proceeded to stick to the paint and leave marks in the paint / take some of the paint off. So I am letting these cure for the full 30 days before I put anything on them, and it is annoying, but they're just sitting in here chilling, letting the paint cure. But it took me forever to sand them because the paint that was on there previously was thick. It was thick paint. So sanded them down and then repainted them. And it was humid outside, so it was taking forever for the paint to dry, but I got it. There are some spots that need touched up still, so that's a thing that I should do soon. Anyway, so I did then move on to The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This mystery thriller, we meet Millie, I'm pretty sure her name is Millie, and she has interviewed to be the housemaid for the Winchesters, for Nina and Andrew Winchester, and they have one child, Cecilia. They're of course rich and Andrew's super attractive. The wife is a little bit crazy, but Millie really needs this job. She just got out of prison. She was fired from her bartending job, and so she really needs this job because she's still on parole. She ends up getting this job now as the housemaid, and Nina is seeming psychotic. She leaves the house a mess, and like overnight the house becomes a disaster and Millie has to clean it up, or she'll throw fits or go into a rage and like destroy the kitchen or destroy the bathroom or like whatever, and Millie has to then clean it up. Nina will like lie to Millie and say like, hey, call her, hey, I really need you to go pick Cecilia up from school. I'm not gonna be able to make it, blah, blah, blah. And then Millie gets to the school and the daughter doesn't need picked up. That normally this day, she goes, so-and-so takes her to her dance lesson. And Millie calls Nina and she's like, hey, just wanna make sure, like you told me to come. And she's like, no, I didn't tell you to come pick her up. I don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Wednesday, she always goes to dance class with so-and-so. And so Millie's like, what the fuck? Through different turns of events, Andrew and Millie end up hooking up. And then all of a sudden we get to a part 2. Well, this book was so similar to The Last Mrs. Parrish, which I read in like November, December. It was so similar to that, like the same freaking premise. Part 1 and part 2, like basically the same things happened, except for the two women being friends. One's a housemaid and one's the wife. Like, it was so similar. So I kind of was getting bored with it because I already knew what was going on. Like, I already knew what was going on because it literally had happened in The Last Mrs. Parrish. I didn't enjoy it as much because of that. Like, there wasn't a big twist. I knew what was going on. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I would have read it before The Last Mrs. Parrish. But then if I had read The Last Mrs. Parrish second, I would have enjoyed that one less. You know what I mean? So because they were so similar, I already knew. So it was fine. It wasn't bad. I try not to give it a terrible rating just because I already knew what was going on. But how do you write two books that are so freaking similar to each other? Like, they're so similar to each other. So I gave The Housemaid 4 stars. It was fine. It was a quick audiobook. I was listening to it while I was painting. I'm pretty sure I finished it while I was painting or really close to it, so it was fine. Then I read my ARC, which was The Cherry Blossom Boathouse by Laura Bloom. I got this ARC on NetGalley. Anyone can create a NetGalley account and request advanced reader copies or advanced listener copies for audiobooks. I happened to get this romance. We are introduced to our main female character, Sophie, and she has moved to the United States, to Washington State, I think, Washington State, from London. She has recently gone through a pretty bad breakup. Her mother has passed away like a year ago or something. And then she went through a really bad breakup, and she decided that she wanted to do something different with her life. So she happened, while she was in London, to get drunk one night. It was kind of like a GoFundMe account so that she could afford to buy this boathouse on a lake in, I'm pretty sure it was Washington State. Buy this boathouse, and she wants to turn this boathouse into a bookstore. She gets the money together between her inheritance and this GoFundMe and moves across the world, buys this boathouse sight unseen, trying to renovate it and make it a bookstore. So the first scene in this book, she accidentally drops her purse into the lake, and so she dives in after it. But the current of the lake is like taking the purse away, and the purse happens to have the last letter her mom gave her before she died that she hasn't read yet. So her neighbor, Luke, sees that she is in the water and it's cold. It's not summer. So he goes and pulls her out, you know, with his big, strong muscles. He just pulls her right out of the lake. And she's like, oh no, but I need my purse because it's got my mom's letter in it and blah, blah, blah. So he goes out and fishes out her purse, takes the letter and goes and like lays it out so it can dry. There's no shower in her rundown boathouse. It's been vacant for a while. So she's dripping wet with stinky, gross lake water. And she's like, hey neighbor, like I need help. And so he lets her shower in his house next door, his lake house or his boathouse next door. Luke is very against this outsider coming in and changing all this stuff about this boathouse and doesn't believe that she'll stick around because in the past, these outsiders have come in, tried to change things, and then just leave. We find out that's because of a past relationship that he had, so he's a little emotional about the situation. Not necessarily listening to Sophie and not understanding that that's not like why she's here. She's not trying to change everybody and everything. She just wants to do this for herself and kind of start over and prove to herself that she can do this hard thing. Like, her ex told her that she was boring because she liked to plan things and like make lists and blah, blah. And so she just is trying to do this for herself and trying to make herself happy. They start to develop feelings for each other, and Luke offers to help with the renovations, which thank goodness, because there's quite a bit to do. They develop this relationship, some back and forth, and then some conflicts, and not telling each other how they really feel. Sophie keeping secrets from Luke about how her project was funded. She only told him that it was from her mother's inheritance and didn't tell him about the GoFundMe and all of this, and like lied right to his face. So I understood why he was upset about that. Back and forth, and this book was really, really cute. I did enjoy their banter because of course there was a lot of banter because he was like all grumpy about her being there and she just tried to make the best of it, and it was really cute. And this is the first book in the Solace Springs series, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, cute romance book. Definitely very spring summery. I gave The Cherry Blossom Boathouse 4.25 stars. I moved on to Nightbane by Alex Astor. This was on my TBR, I think as a shelf spin. I kind of put it on there because I was having trouble, like go watch May's TBR, I'll link it down below. It was a whole thing, but Nightbane ended up on the TBR. I've been dying to jump back into this world. I had to find out how Isla and Aro were gonna try to solve things and how Grimm was gonna come and play a role, you know, come back and play a role. Following Isla and Aro, and they're trying to save Lightlark again because Grimm is threatening Lightlark. Isla is having like these visions and she's not sure if it's Grimm giving her those visions or what they entail and all of these things. And then she's also getting all of her memories back, and her memories like hold the key. I'm still a Grimm girly. I am still a Grimm girly. Aro is just, he's just too nice. Aro is just too nice. I just can't get into Aro, but I really love this book. It was so, so good. I read it so fast, and I was also listening to the audiobook. I immersive read this one again, but I read it so fast because I just didn't want to put it down. I had to know what happened. And now I can't wait to get to Skyshade. Like, these are so good. I definitely recommend this series. I gave Nightbane 4.5 stars, so absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I read and listened to Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. And I read this one really fast because I had just gotten my tattoo, and so I couldn't do a whole lot because my whole hand was swollen, and you know, fresh ink, you got to be careful and you can't just be willy-nilly doing things. So I was sitting on the couch a lot, and this is on Kindle Unlimited, so I did download it onto my Kindle so that I could just press my little button, because there was no way I was holding a book open with this hand. Like, there's no way. It was way too goopy. Picked up Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This book actually fulfills my year in Eldia prompt for February. If you watched my April TBR video, you'll know that I didn't realize that we were using the same map for year in Eldia for this year as we did last year, so I started a little bit late. So I'm backtracking and trying to read those books. So this fulfills the prompt for February, which was a book on the bottom shelf. Now, that was supposed to be Billy Summers by Stephen King, and it would have fulfilled a TBR pick and my year in Eldia, but I didn't want to read it. I didn't feel like it, and I really wanted to read this book. Plus, I've been trying to get through books in series, and this was a book in a series that I've already started. I really wanted to read this. We are introduced to our main female character, Brianna, and she is a doctor at the same hospital as the main female character in book one, Royum Hospital in Minneapolis. She is an ER doctor, and there's a new ER doctor who's just started at their hospital, and his name is Jacob. His first day on the job, 7 people died. It was through no fault of his own. You know, it just happens. It's the ER. So 7 people died on his first shift. So all the nurses started calling him Dr. Death, and nobody liked him because he was really like distant and like straightforward and just like not like super friendly, and it was his first day. He didn't make the greatest first impression. I think it was his first day or his first week or something. He was in one of the supply closets having lunch by himself because he is an extreme introvert with very high anxiety, and was having lunch by himself, and he comes out of the closet. Bianca runs smack dab into him, and he drops his phone and it cracks his screen. Well, he follows her to basically confront her like, hey, you ran into me and you broke my phone screen. When he walks into the patient's room that she's in, He is totally like struck dumb by her beauty. He just is so flustered that he can't even speak when he's looking at her. Him just trying to even come up with anything to say, he basically says, hey, you ran into me. You shouldn't be running in the halls like scolding her like she's a child or something. And so she is really put off by that. Plus the situation that she's in was really like traumatic because it had to deal with her brother. And so basically she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, why are you talking to me like this? Just like go away. So he leaves and he's like, oh my gosh, like why did I say that? That's not how I meant it at all. Now she's gonna think I'm a freaking weirdo. The two of them are working together and they're trying to avoid each other because they don't necessarily like each other. Well, then Jacob writes Brianna and basically an apology letter. He's like, I have been, like these things have been weighing on my mind. And so here, let me just write you a letter because that's how he deals with his anxiety. He journals and he writes about it. So he writes her a letter and she reads it and she just thinks it's the greatest thing ever. She's like, oh my gosh, like he wrote me a letter. And so she writes him back. So they just have like these back and forth letters. They start to talk a little bit more and they start to have lunch together in the supply closet and they get to know each other a little better. And Brianna realizes that he's actually not that bad of a guy, that he just has like super high anxiety and like overthinks a bunch of things and doesn't like to be around people and doesn't like to go to situations where there are like unknown questions. And I really appreciated how Brianna treated Jacob and how she thought about his anxiety before like proposing situations to him, or if they had to go to like an outing or go to a party or go to his parents' house and there would be a bunch of people there, like she thought about him and like how he would feel about the situation and would try to make it as easy as possible for him. So I really appreciated that because I, a lot of the times, feel like Jacob did in the book. Not quite as much as him, but still like going to an unknown place, not knowing where to park, not knowing what the menu is, wanting to know the situation and like looking into the place before I leave, like wanting to know who's gonna be there, not wanting to be approached by random strangers and trying to come up with things to talk about. Like I really appreciated how she treated him. I tried to understand that the way he comes off and the things he says isn't like who he is as an actual person. Like he's just trying to do his best. And he turned out to be the sweetest, most caring man ever. Just so selfless, was always thinking about other people, even with his high anxiety. He was always thinking about other people and like he wanted to not let them down and everything. Of course, they, you know, slowly fell in love and it was so cute. And this is fake dating and I normally don't like fake dating, but this was really super cute. I just think Abby Jimenez does an excellent job. She does an excellent job. She's an amazing author. This is the second book of hers I've read and I've just loved them both. So I gave Yours Truly 4.5 stars. Just absolutely loved it. The final book that I read in the month of May, I actually finally finished The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I started this back in April. It was my mug pick for April and I was listening to it on audio. My library hold ran out and so I finally got it back in the month of May and I actually finished it. Now, this is a short book. It's 300 pages long. It's just under 300 pages long. And this is like, I mean, it's sort of kind of small writing. I don't know. This story dragged. This dragged a lot. And we are introduced to our main female character, Hester Prynne, who has to wear the scarlet letter because she's an adulterer and she slept with this man and she got pregnant and she wouldn't tell these Puritan people who the father was. She was trying to protect him. So she had to live her whole life with the scarlet letter, with that red A on her chest, and raise this daughter by herself. At first, I was confused about the characters because they call the same character by different names. And so I was trying to follow along and it was hard for me. So I had to like Google it to see who these main characters in the book were, because we had Reverend Dimsdale, which they also called the minister. And then you had this guy who shows up who is supposedly a doctor. What was his name? Creepy doctor dude who like shows up and like integrates himself into their town. And then you had like the mayor guy and the mayor guy's like crazy witch sister. And so it was really odd, because when they would talk about characters, they would then talk about that character's interactions with other people in their life, and then those people's interactions with somebody else in their life. So I'm like, why are we getting like 2 or 3 people away from the person we were talking about? Like, this is totally irrelevant to the story. And it was actually totally irrelevant to the freaking story. So we're introduced to all these like random people who you never see again and have nothing to do with the actual story. So it was confusing to me, because I thought, oh, surely I have to remember this person because they're gonna come play a role. And they never did. Then the daughter, Hester Prynne's daughter, Pearl, is she's young, but she's weird. Like, she just acts very, very strangely and says weird things and like does weird things. So I couldn't understand, like, it was not any like actions of a child that I know in real life or a child in a book that I've ever witnessed. And it was just, she was acting so odd. And then the end of the book was just weird, and I just didn't love it. It was fine. It was fine. It drug on, and it talked about things that weren't relevant to the story whatsoever. And then the ending was just weird, and I just didn't totally love it. So, I mean, I get it. Like, the whole premise of the story is fine, but it just had so much unnecessary stuff in here that I lost enjoyment for it and was like struggling to finish it, because there was so much extra nonsensical information that had nothing to do with the actual story. So I gave the Scarlet Letter 3 stars. The actual story was good. I enjoyed the actual story if the book had stuck to that story the whole time, instead of like diverging into all these other branches that have nothing to do with the actual storyline. So that was the part that I didn't like about this book. Let's talk about the book that I DNF'd. So that was Daughter of Fortune by Isabel Allende, and it was 100 Years of Books pick, and I don't remember for what year, but it was 100 Years of Books pick in my May TBR, and I listened to the audiobook. I got about 30% into this book before I decided to DNF it, and that was a hard-won 30%. I almost quit reading it at like 13%, and I thought, no, I need to see if this gets anywhere, and it just never did. It never did. Again, this story, we're introduced to the main female character, and she's young, and she was adopted. So then you are introduced to the brother and sister that adopted her, and another brother of theirs, plus this like random guy who comes over to, are they in Chile? Or Argentina? I don't remember, on a ship with the one brother. And so now he's a character in the story, which was fine. So we're introduced to like those main core characters and are kind of learning about them and their lives. But then again, we're introduced to all of these other random people that have like nothing to do with the story. So the guy who came over on the boat with the one brother, so we're talking about him and his life growing up. Well, then this one person that was in his life growing up, we talk about them, and then this other person that was in that person's life. So it has nothing to do with the main guy. The main guy, the person that was in the main guy's life growing up, and then a whole nother person that was in this person's life that has nothing to do with this original person. And then another person down the line. So now you're like, again, 3 or 4 people down the line from the main character that you were talking about, with all these people that have nothing to do with the story. They have nothing to do with the story. It's just freaking random. And they did it for all of these characters. And I was only 30% into the book. So 30% into the book, we're still just talking about all of these random characters, and basically hardly anything happened in the main storyline. Hardly anything happened in the main storyline. Like, the back of the book says that the main female character marries this guy, he goes off to San Francisco for the gold rush, and then she ends up following him for the gold rush. Not a wink, not an inkling of that did we get in the first 30%. We were still talking about all these random freaking people, and I just didn't care. I didn't care, and it was a waste of my time. And I knew if I heard about one more freaking random character that had nothing to do with the story, that I was just gonna scream. Especially since at the same time, I was trying to listen to this too. So it's just like, I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. So I DNF'd it because I just didn't care. I just didn't care. And that's okay because there are lots of books out there that I am actually excited to read and enjoy. So why not spend my time reading books that I enjoy when there are so many that I want to read? Like so friggin' many. I'm going to try to embrace that even more because I almost wish that I had DNF'd The Scarlet Letter. But the ending, the ending was interesting. The ending was definitely interesting. So I just didn't like all the randomness to actually get there. But anyways, so that wraps up all of the books that I read for the month of May. I am pretty sure we got them all. I'm pretty sure we got them all. If you made it this far, 1, thank you. 2, leave an eye emoji in the comments, you know, because Reese is watching us. And make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. I've got some fun reading vlogs coming up and some fun bookish content. Since June, July is halfway through the year, I've got some mid-year book stats and mid-year wrap-ups and book mid-year tags coming up. So be on the lookout for those videos. I will see you in the next one. Bye.